You're listening to the Occupational Philosophers with Simon Banks and John Rice.
Hello, welcome to the Occupational Philosophers, the podcast that explores the curious collision of philosophy, creativity, curiosity, and the world of work each and every week, and a little bit more time in between. I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, John Rice, over in the United Kingdom. Good morning, John. What's caught your curious eye this week?
Hello, Simon. What's caught my curious eye is I visited a church not too many miles away from where I am. So I'm on the south coast, Shoreham by Sea. This is a little church called the English Martyrs Church. It's a Catholic church in a place called Goring. And its claim to fame is that a parishioner, a member of the church, has recreated quite faithfully the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in this church. So this is a concave church roof, which is as would be in the original Sistine Chapel. Strangely, it was 2/3 the original size of the Sistine Chapel. This chap, Gary Bevans, and we'll put it all in the show notes, it's quite phenomenal, on various trips to Rome, just thought, I fancy recreating that. I don't know how that thought emerged. It's quite a piece of work. I think Michelangelo, I don't know how long it took him with a host of workers alongside him. Years, wasn't it? So anyway, so he's gone back to the UK and he has recreated in unbelievable detail the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. So it's got all of the popes on it. It's got the God and the creation of Adam, classic fingertips touching each other in the centre. It's got David and Goliath and Noah and the flood.
Man reclining on clouds.
Yeah, that's it. And lots of men on clouds. And it's just quite phenomenal. So I was blown away by that. And it was obviously of particular note that that's where the cardinals were all gathered for the conclave for the new pope. That's where they are locked in, aren't they? They're locked into the Sistine Chapel. So it made me think that it was a timely moment to go and have a look at this thing. So yeah, quite incredible. I'll put it in the show notes, but yeah, take a look. It took him 5.5 years. And he was doing this on his own, 5.5 years, after work or at the weekends. I mean...
So was he a member of the church or was he one of the priests or something like a
No,
minister?
he's just a member of the congregation. He's just a member of that church and that community. It's a fantastic community, and I was fortunate to have a quick tour with someone. Anyone that you got was obviously immensely proud of it. So they were taking you around going, this is what this means and this is how this came together. So yeah, it was just a very life-affirming, inspiring thing to go and see. I did wonder as to that thing about copying and the level of creativity there is still in being able to replicate as opposed to originally design something. And I'm sure there could be a whole show on that, but it was phenomenally creative, albeit it is a replication.
That goes to the heart of the art versus design versus craft question. And yes, that is another show. But I'd say you wouldn't even worry about that. Like if someone wants to have a run at it, yeah, great. And I'm doing yeah.
He certainly had a run at it for 5.5 years, bless him. He's still there. I mean, he did this in 1987 to 1992. So he's still a parishioner, a member of the congregation. I think he's in his 70s now. He's in his 20s when he did it. But it's,
he's still at it, yeah.
He's still adding bits. Probably. It's like you, isn't it? You've got pieces of art that are never finished.
Yeah, that is true. And look, I've done some where I've copied them mainly because I thought, there's a almond blossom Van Gogh picture. So I did it for my wife just for something to do, see if I could do it. It's the same process, like you're exercising the same bits in your head and you add your own flourishes. So I wouldn't say it's not original, but the creative process is there. And who cares if it's not? Yeah. If you've done 5 years, go for it.
I suspect Gary, the artist in this instance, would have made a better job of the Monkey Christ.
Ah, yeah. Classic Monkey Christ.
Discussed on a very early episode on this very podcast. Anyway, Simon, how about you? What's been catching your eye over the last few weeks?
What's caught my eye, John? Nothing as highbrow as this, but my nephew has become a professional rugby league player this year with the Sydney Roosters. So finally made into that top 30. And as such, I've become a lot more curious around rugby league and it's caught my interest. But then you also just dive into these fan forums, which I've never done just because he comes up a fair bit and different things. And the passion that exists in subcultures for different things that I just never in a million years would have thought was there. Yeah, I'm just sort of mindful of these worlds that go on about around us that we never, ever, ever tune into. But there's so much more out there if we're curious.
Yes, I was thinking the very same. We're just starting to go into the festival season. So there's various festivals, but some of them have their niche. So there's ones about camper vans and it's all people who are passionate about camper vans. And I was thinking, yes, subcultures. Do you have a subculture, Simon? Are you part of a subculture or a tribe?
Not sure. Not sure. I have recently joined Urban Sketches where you wander around and you do that. I haven't joined them, hasn't joined for an outing. So yeah, that's a very good question. And I'm just aware of once you start to tune into something, how your radar goes off for all of that as well. So I don't know if that's really anything awe-inspiring.
Yeah, no,
but
well,
there's just a lot of stuff out there if we choose to tune into it.
Well, yeah, and once you do find a tribe or a subculture, then you do absolutely become intensely curious, don't you? And that's where you get people who are passionate because they are really across this particular niche area of life, whether it's something creative or something practical or whatever it is, DIY enthusiasts or something like that. But yeah.
What I've also noticed is this team, they're traditionally a very, very strong team and they lost their first game. And so everyone was like on the fan forums, sack the coach is useless, playing on these young fellas, which my nephew is one of, should be sacked. The next week they beat the Premiers. The coach is a genius. The fair trade winds of fandom blow hot and cold each and every week. And then other people are getting stuck in, now you've changed your tune and you're a sook last week. Now, anyway, I've found it really interesting to dip my toe into this fan football culture, which I've never really bothered. So yeah, there you go. Many things, John.
Very nice. Very nice. So what are we exploring today, Simon?
John, I've been reading a really great book, which I know you've dived into as well, by Rick Rubin, The Creative Act, A Way of Being. Now, Rick Rubin is a music producer and he looks like he's wandered out of a Zen monastery. But if you think, I haven't heard of Rick Rubin, here's just a few of the people that he's worked with, like literally everyone. Okay. So from the worlds of hip hop and rap, Beastie Boys, Run DMC, Public Enemy, Jay-Z, Wu-Tang Clan. So some huge big power players in let's say, or alternative. Everyone from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Metallica and Slayer through to Adele and Lana Del Rey. So on the other end, worked with Johnny Cash, the Dixie Chicks, who are now the Chicks, Ed Sheeran, Kesha, Lady Gaga, through to people like even Justin Timberlake, Neil Diamond, and System of a Down on that very heavy end. So this guy has...
That's incredible. That sounds like the ultimate festival lineup.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. You just go to I worked with Rick Rubin.
Yeah, the Rick Rubin Festival. Slayer, they're on the pyramid stage while Adele's just in one of the tents. Something like that.
They're kicking it off with a low down, some low down tunes. Now, the reason that's worth sharing is when he speaks, he's got some skin in the game. Okay, so it's not someone like a consultant with a 5-point creativity plan. He's just reflecting on, like myself, he's reflecting on what he's done. And so he's got some real, I think, some good points.
Okay. So this isn't about just him being a producer, I've worked with these and we produced this album. This is more him going inside himself a little and saying, this is what he's learned about being creative, as it were. More of that, is it?
Well, I think it's about actually that what you've said about being, about how we show up in the world. based on, let's say, the hundreds of people he's worked with. And so we'll dive into, but it's all around how he helps those people to be the best version of themselves rather than it's like this is what I've done for them. It's more around have I created the space. And he's got like sort of 6 or 7 key points. I reckon we dive into them.
That sounds good. Go for it.
So let's kick off. Now, he doesn't define creativity as a job title or deliverable. He sees it as a state of being. Now, a way of paying attention, of moving through the world with openness and curiosity. And what I like in creativity, in his view, isn't something we do, it is something we are.
So in that regard, he's of the school of, look, we're all creative then. Whether you're executive assistant or the marketing intern or the chief financial officer, how you bring yourself then to work with curiosity, openness, paying attention to things is a way you can be creative.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not about what you produce, which we often focus on. Oh, he's creative because of the outcome. But it's about what you see and how you engage in that. Now, I often say, the difference between a creative person and non-creative person is creative person does creative stuff, which produces output. However, he's almost steps back from that. It's how you sort of show up in the moments each and every day.
Okay, so creativity then, not about what you're producing, and let's put it in the world of work. So it doesn't matter where you sit in the organization. You might not be directly producing something. It is just you are creative if you're coming with a certain attitude, mindset, and the way you engage with others that ultimately might produce something out there to the world or whatever. Could be widgets, could be whatever that is. But okay, so we're all creative. That's what Rick's telling us. We could all work with Slayer.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's about how you show up rather than what you produce as well. So how you go in that moment. A good question then is, what even only at 10 to 20% more if every team member saw themselves with a bit of that creativity and artistry in their role, looking for those, how do I be in a more creative space today? Possibly.
Yes, and organisationally, of course, they can frame that in the way they talk about the values within the organisation or the culture they're trying to create or engender. So they can sort of promote that idea of we want people who are curious and open and paying attention and noticing things.
Now, speaking of paying attention, let's kick off his notion of the artist as a vessel. Now, if you've ever read Elizabeth Gilbert, she, in Big Magic, she speaks from a similar space. John, take us through this, because what you said before, noticing, he goes into this space as well.
Yes, the slight woo-woo bit, isn't it? I was thinking of how I might channel a stick man just before I draw it. I can sense a stick man drawing coming through me. Oh, it's on the paper. That looks awful. So yes, but I have heard this before, that people will often say, yes, I don't, it's like sculptures and people who work with materials, they'll say, look, I didn't create that out of the wood. It just, the wood talked to me or whatever, and I just answered the calling, as it were. So I have heard of that idea that you sort of surrender yourself in some way to things and then something emerges. I'm not sure how that would turn up in the workplace and how that conversation would go with your boss, where you go, I'm just waiting for the spreadsheet to emerge. It's not happened yet. Well, we need it by Friday. Well, we'll have to see about that. I'll have to zen it a bit longer. Better leave me now.
That is true, because it goes to his point. Like sometimes, and what I like with everything he says, it's not like this is the only way to do it. Everything he shares has a caveat. Like everything he shares says, well, sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't. But this is what I've seen working with all of these people over time. So, and which it goes to his point, sometimes great ideas don't come from effort. They come from space or quiet or stillness. So you don't chase them, you receive them, which is that reframe to a lot of work cultures that we see as well.
Okay, so I do like that it into, well, again, it doesn't matter to Rick whether I like it or not, does it really? But
He will be relieved
Yeah,
when he's
that's it,
listening.
yeah.
Oh, John liked this. Great.
9 out of 10, Rick. Well done. I do like the idea where he then expands on that. The ideas don't come from us, but through us, because that is asking people to be a bit more humble, maybe, because they can then go, look, because they're not acting in isolation. Anybody who suggests something in a forum of some description, an idea, is often having taken something from what somebody else has said. And so suddenly these ideas just flow through individuals and peoples and groups, and then something forms within that group or within that individual. So I quite like that it makes people a bit more, oh, I've got a great idea and it's mine. Much more of, okay, let's see how we can create the conditions where the best ideas come through.
Yeah, and also I like how he speaks around, we need to make the space for that idea to arrive rather than to wrangle it into submission. And a big part of that is listening. So I think in a workplace concept, listening to others as well, but also listening to ourselves and listening to what's going on in the world around us. And we've often spoken around this, the lucky butcher. You're going back to many episodes. But no, how do you create those moments where the serendipity can arrive and those people, let's say, more inspiration comes to them because they're open to that inspiration. So it sort of comes back to that the creativity isn't around what they do. They're open to what could happen. So they're there to receive it, not necessarily just around pushing out content all the time. They're open to receiving some content as well.
I was just reminded or mindful of the fact that as a producer, part of it is he gets a load of talent in a recording studio, and you'll often have those kind of classic things where they start riffing and jamming and bouncing ideas off each other. And then suddenly the idea forms that then becomes the tune or the music or the album, whatever it is. And he, as the producer, is just trying to give them that space, that studio space and time to allow that to happen. So as a CEO, we need to step behind the screen sometimes and sit in front of the mixing desk and watch and create the conditions for our leadership team to jam and riff and come up with ideas and then fight and have musical differences and scream and shout at each other and walk out the door.
This is like the 2025 version of the 2010s metaphor. You need some people on the dance floor and some people on the balcony. I think we've just uncovered something. You need some people behind the mixing desk, some people producing the music. Okay. I like it. So I guess if we think around this, think around ideas don't necessarily come from us, they come through us, which is, as you said before, a nice way to think around how do we as a team bring some of those ideas forth into the world? And maybe not it's about grinding all the time, but maybe, according to Rick, it's around learning to listen and be aware of what's going on around us.
Now, this third point, I think this is quite Buddhist.
He is a Buddhist. He is a Buddhist.
Oh, is it?
He is a Buddhist.
Oh, so the Zen monastery, that was real. That wasn't a metaphorical, he sounds like he's been sat in the Zen monastery.
He looks like a Zen Buddhist.
Oh, right.
And he is a Buddhist, right. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Yes. That's why he's urging us to detach ourselves from the outcome, isn't he? And not get hung up on something like a target or something like this.
Well, maybe not from the Buddhism, but maybe whatever he's come from, he's got results. So that's why I think it's worth listening, whether from Buddhism or from his work or the dollars he has made for the recording studios and different things or record labels. He comes from a position of strength. Anyway.
So it is about thinking about the process, allowing something to unfold rather than being driven towards outcome, goal, KPI all the time. Of course, those things are necessary in some areas. There are some measures that are useful to see, are we on track? Are we going in the direction we intended type thing? But in terms of this as a creative process to allow things to emerge, it's to let go of where you think you might want to go, hold it quite loosely. Would that be a good description? Hold it loosely?
I think it's a really good way to think about it. And also when you think around, it's not about letting go of goals. His goal is to create an album with these people. Like he's getting paid to work with them, but his way of getting that outcome might not be it's not necessarily the tick box way, which we might normally go about things. So he lets space, a little bit of that magic to come out, that serendipitous type of stuff, rather than being, I produce an album in a certain way. And that comes all throughout the book. He goes, then we tried this and we might try that. And I might suggest this and I might suggest that. Then I might send the person outside or I might bring them inside. So it's a collection of different approaches. And then he goes, then we might try that and it doesn't work. So we'll try something else. However, all of this moving together by letting go gets them to where they need to be, which is why I find it so fascinating that he can talk about it not from let's say, a philosopher's perspective or someone who creates illustrations in their home. Someone who produces these award-winning, insane outcomes, which have a huge monetary outcome as well. And look, it's also when he talks around getting that space where that magic can happen, he's very much as well, though, into constraints and rituals. So which is this juxtaposition as he goes through. So he loves constraints because constraints spark creativity. It's an interesting way to think about it, that too much freedom can kill creativity. And often the blank canvas can really defend itself really well, can be paralyzing when you're just looking at that blankness. So he's a real advocate of giving things boundaries, and with those boundaries, which might be budget, time frame, limited palette, we can only play it in these notes, try this, maybe seeing a cappella, remove all the instruments from it, ideas emerge from that. So providing those parameters and boundaries and constraints drives creativity forward. So he does have a process, or is aware of trying different things rather than just going, hey, see what happens, which sort of is a bit counterintuitive, what we spoke about before, which is why I love this book.
And so I get the constraints, and you often have that, isn't it? Some of those fantastic, innovative ideas that have emerged from different sectors of industries or whatever have been where they couldn't do it a certain way. They did have limited budget. They were constrained often by monies if they were a startup, clearly. But the other thing is this idea of rituals. That's where he kind of says, here's the space where you're going to sit, or we're going to carve out this time consistently. We're always going to make the time and space for you to come together to do this. And so that ritual means that people switch in terms of their mindset as they come to that place or space or that time in the week or whatever it is.
And he talks around putting these, if you want to bring creativity in your life, put these rituals into your daytime as well. Even if it's, let's say, you sit down with a coffee every morning and you might write for 15 minutes, that's your ritual. So how do you put these rituals in where you send a signal to your brain, we are now moving to that creative space, and when the ritual is there, then you're not relying on the motivation, you just sit. And if it happens, it happens. He said, but that ritual over time will almost like work that creative muscle and work that creative output. So it's dependent on ritual, which is that constraint as well, rather than being anytime, all the time. It's, I'm going to create space and time to do it in this certain way.
That and the ritual, we'll keep it as ritual. I know we've talked about rituals and habits before, but I do think ritual's maybe a nicer word in this context, or more appropriate word in this context. He sees that there's another talking point there, which is about then motivation. And clearly ritual is one of the things that can help you overcome motivation. It's like, putting the running shoes by the side of the bed. So when you get up in the morning, your feet go in the running shoes and, and you don't think about it. So the need to have willpower and discipline, etc., are mitigated against slightly because you've got this ritual that just means it happens by default.
Well, it's like that when whoever they is, when people talk around journaling, and the whole idea with journaling is you just write. You don't have to think about what you're going to write. You just sit down and write. And then all of a sudden you've got 2 pages or your 4 pages. If you follow Julia Cameron or The Artist's Way, it's just sitting down and write. So it's almost like back to Dr. Peter Lovett, dance first, think later. It's the natural order. It's the same thing here. Create first, think later. It's the natural order. Like whatever you've got, just start making, playing, moving, strumming the guitar, writing, or whatever it may be. So like with walking, just start walking. Like you can think about the walk, you can plan it, you can go over the steps in your head, just start walking and then...
The problem here, Simon, is I've tried this. And frankly, my wife is absolutely fed up with it because by the side of my bed, I've got a pair of running shoes, a sketch pad, a painting
Cardboard.
easel, a potter's wheel, all of this by the side of my bed. It's just chaos in the morning.
You've become like a hoarder.
And of course, I still up at 4 a.m, like any great guru does. Or that's probably too late now. I think Mark Wahlberg gets up at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
4? Ha! Having a lie-in. Loser.
Now, one of the points that you might not think would come from a book which is around creativity or the creative act, originality is overrated. Shock, horror. And you might imagine this, and I love his honesty here, is it's a bit of a myth because everything is a remix of something before it.
Picasso had the quote on this as well, and our great artists steal and stuff like this, isn't it? It's reinterpretation of things. It's putting your own spin on stuff is acceptable, is actually what much of this creative process is about. It's about putting your own soul into something and it becoming something different.
His point is you don't need to be original, but you just need to be true. So need true to what you're doing. And if you think about it, and you read this a lot, there is nothing original. How can you not be influenced? Even a startup which is doing something completely different, they've taken their learning points from other businesses which aren't working, and they might be the first to it. So it's an original idea, but it's been influenced by loads of other ideas, I would say.
There's lots of, again, business studies around this where the ones that succeed in a particular market are often not the ones who first came to the market with that original idea. They're the ones who might be second or third in, and as you say, have reinterpreted it or refined it or worked with that original idea but made it their own, and they come to the market and then succeed. I can't remember any examples specifically off the top of my head. I'm sure there's a host of them.
No, Gemma Enright,
Uber or something like that. It's disruptive things that came about that then suddenly it wasn't the first ones that were remembered.
Yeah, Gemma Enright spoke about that in one of our previous episodes around that ability to connect disparate things where two things which maybe aren't working as well as they could, and they join them together. So again, they don't need to be new, they just need to be true. So I like how that frame is that we don't need novelty for novelty's sake. It needs people saying real things in their own voice. That's the edge.
And I'm wondering, again, just put it in the context of occupational philosophers and in the workplace. I mean, so that could be where you take the pressure off people to think they have to come up with these original ideas all the time, but rather just say, look, how do you see this? How do you see what we're doing? How might you reinterpret this as a means for us to create something potentially new or advantageous or whatever? But it takes the pressure off, say, look, you don't have to be sat there with some brilliant light bulb idea that no one's thought of. It's okay to go, look, part of this creative process can be evolutionary. So let's look at what's happening, refine, bring your own voice to it, bring your own perspective to it, and see then what emerges as potentially become something quite innovative, albeit not wholly original.
Did you say wholly original or wholly original? Sound like you dropped the W there. Wholly original.
Wholly. Is it? I say wholly original.
I think you need a wholly original.
I save wholly original for when I'm sat in church.
Okay.
Looking at the Sistine Chapel.
Okay. Apologies to anyone where they sit on the holly or holy debate. Now, and I think a really nice thing you might just be asking your team, where can we do this better? Okay, so it doesn't have to be something, where can
Absolutely, that's it.
Rather than what can we do differently, or maybe that is the question, where can we do this better? He also talks around sensitivity as a superpower and being sensitive is a gift, and it's how we notice things that other people miss. So linked to curiosity, but different to how the corporate world might normally see sensitivity. His way of speaking around sensitivity is that edge. So your ability to sense tension, tone, nuance, and think of it like a sacred resource because you're sensitive to what you bring in. So you need to be good with curating your inputs as well. So I think it's another way of labeling it as curiosity. So that's sensitivity to what's going on around you. But in the corporate world, if you say, oh, he's really sensitive, it may get or she or they may get mislabeled as something rather than a gift, maybe as a weakness.
Okay, so it's almost like hyper attention. It's just that extra bit of fine tuning into stuff. Because it's interesting, you say tension, tone, nuance. In organizations as teams come together, for example, yeah, that is a skill, isn't it? If you can pick up to go, I'm hearing one thing, I'm sensitive to the fact that actually Tom seems quite resistant to this. I can see the way I can hear the tone of his voice. I can see how he's reacting to things. But you wouldn't get that without that hyper attention. And often people are so in their own heads, are unable to fine tune what they notice in that. So the subtleties are more things that are really saying what's going on.
And I like in the book, he talks around lots of people he's worked with. He doesn't name drop anyone in the book. And he also doesn't give anyone a hard time for being difficult. It just often he'll talk around, I sense this, so we tried this. So there's a lot of the book is around, I sense that they weren't feeling, and interestingly, he said a lot of people, not the confidence you think they would. Yeah, like doesn't matter how, let's say, successful you are, you're still selling, but if you sold to the world. So I'm guessing what I've read, there's a lot of that need to be sensitive to what makes people shine as well. So how can I get the best out of this person? But he also talks when you need to guard your sensitivity because you need to be selective about what you let in because you don't want to be maybe oversensitized. I'm not sure if I get it right so you want to curate the bits of information you let through so you're not taking on everything so you can concentrate on the right thing, which again seems a bit yin and yang or you're curious but not too curious, sensitive but not too sensitive. Oh, so you let that in, then you don't let that in. So it's just being sensitive to your sensitivity. Really.
Going very meta now, aren't we?
What's my
curious but not too curious, sensitive but not too. I would just say in the middle.
In the middle. Now,
No.
Here we go. Leadership question where we always talk about what would you change if we treated emotional sensitivity as a leadership asset? Building what you said before, would there be something in that? We talk around emotional intelligence. Imagine emotional sensitivity as a leadership asset. What might it look like?
Well, I suppose it's, as I say, I would just go, it's just making sure you're wholly or wholly dialed up on your emotional intelligence, on what you're paying attention to. And it's just making sure that as a leader, you're not phoning it in, as they say, dialing it in, phoning it in, just going through the motions. You are genuinely there in a moment if you're with people and really tuned into what's being said and what's underneath that and how people are interacting with you, not just kind of hearing the content, but ignoring all the other stimuli that actually might give you a lot of information. So I think it's just really paying attention to what's being said and with the people you're in front of, would be my take. Is it an asset, a leadership asset? Absolutely, yeah. It is being able to engage with people in a way that you can get the best out of them. I do like the idea, maybe as we come to a wrap-up, that as a producer, as Rick Rubin was, I think leaders can look at themselves as producers. I mean, that's going to put a bounce in their, it's going to put a bounce in their steps right away, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a producer. What do you do?
DJ
I work with some of the best leadership teams in the world.
I'm a DJ mix-a-lot, yeah.
Yeah. Hey.
Playing at Shoreham by Sea Community Hall this weekend, yeah.
But in terms of that idea of, as a producer, it's about getting the best out of the talent that is there in your organisation. It's quite a nice way of looking at it. It removes the leader as the central figure, this ego, sort of centric leader figure, to a producer who's sometimes stood behind the screen, on the mixing desk, trying to get the best out of the organisation, the team, whatever it is, that's sat in the studio. Okay, what's going to work here? How do we experiment? I think it's a chief production officer.
Okay, I like it. Or chief mix-a-lot. or something. I reckon we can find chief production officer, chief producer. Anyway.
There was Lord Mix-a-Lot, but I think he's a character from an Arthurian legend.
Okay, all right. I always thought there was somebody Mix-a-Lot.
Arthurian.
Yeah, from
Lord Mix-a-Lot.
Anyway, we'll put that one on notice. So I know I hear when Australian artists get to work to him, what they describe the experience of working with him like, and not around, oh, this was some arsehole producer. It was around, oh, wow, he got us to find things in our music that we didn't know were there. And so I guess a couple of things I take from his book, it's never as linear as you think. Everything he says reflects back on, oh, there could be a different way you could do this, or you could try that, or it might not work. But he's got this collection of things and way of working. So it's not so much around tools or talent, but it's about being open, paying attention and trusting the process, which we didn't go into so much today around. These are some things you need to work through. And at the end of that, if you're present and curious and playful, good things will come of that.
Just a final thought for me, Tom, just as you said about sometimes how Rick Rubin spots something in someone or in the group that's in front of him and think, oh, I wonder if you try that. I think there's something in that they might not have noticed, but he's been hypersensitive, paying attention to, and could see the talent and some of the latent stuff that might be in that group or whatever. And he draws their attention to it. And then suddenly they go, oh, we didn't even know we could get there or do that. But he spotted it as the producer. And I think, again, that's a great role for a leader. Leader as producer.
Okay.
Lord Mix-a-Lot. He is tuned into saying, I think these people could do something quite special here. I just don't think they've quite experimented with it enough. And so he gives them license to do that. Yeah, it's fascinating. I do think he's reframed leadership in a really useful way from quite what we would see as a left field view, isn't it? Coming in from the music industry, but readily applicable to corporate life.
Even though from memory, I don't think he mentions leadership once. I think we've found that. Yeah. But I don't think he mentions that once. Yeah. So
that's our job. Our job is to make a tenuous link.
And put it out into the world and cross our fingers. Yeah.
So there you go. No, joking aside, really. No, I think it's great because it does go to what we're talking about, which is the occupational philosophy thing was that being curious, asking questions. It was reframing how leadership might work or how teams might work or how organizations might work. So, yeah, great. Right. Good read.
We're possibly a bit serious as we went through this, but maybe it's just, time of the year. We're getting towards your longest day, my shortest day. I don't know, the moon. I'm not sure.
It's definitely the moon,
man. The moon. Let's wrap it up.
It's been a long in-betweener.
It has.
It's been a long in-betweener.
It has.
Might need to cut this in two.
Okay. Yeah, part A, part B, that'll help get us out 2 episodes. I like the sound of this. So look, as we always say, if you've enjoyed the show, tell your friends, hit subscribe up in the top of your podcast feed. We're available pretty much everywhere. Stay curious, stay creative, don't wait for the muse, make more, play, and
date life.